today on Rappler. More than 100 hostages are released, including the Zamboanga Chief of Police, as clashes continue on day 9 of the Zamboanga siege. Staff members of senators facing charges in the pork barrel scam resigned or are on leave. And UN Chief Ban Ki-moon condemns the use of chemical weapons in Syria as a war crime. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. Clashes continue between government troops and the Moro National Liberation Front members, but it is day 9 of the Zamboanga siege, brings some very good news. Carmela Fonbuena reports.
For the first time since the 9-day siege of Zamboanga, residents wake up to welcome news. Over 100 hostages are released or able to escape the battle zone. Government troops declare they have cornered Commander Javier Malik. But the sense of relief is short-lived. MNLF fighters abduct no less than the police chief of the city, Senior Superintendent Chiquito Malayo, as he tried to secure the release of hostages.
So the Senior Superintendent Malayo tried to talk with the rebels to surrender or how to remedy the situation and end the problem. In an effort to save lives and properties, he talked with the rebels and unfortunately was held hostage.
Emissaries are sent to get Colonel Malayo released. The group holding him is an MNLF breakaway group from Basilan. The PNP is hopeful the group is not notorious for committing terrorist acts. But the night still brings with it some good news. Malayo has been released. The standoff between the government forces and the followers of Moro National Liberation Front founder Nur Miswari shut down this key city in Mindanao. At least 99 were killed and 160 are wounded. Amidst the chaos, the people who suffer the most are the hostages and their families. Rosa Advincula was inconsolable when Rappler met her on Saturday. 5 of her relatives were taken hostage.
3 kapatid ko, isang pamangkin, isang bayaw.
Today, she is thankful. All 5 are safe.
Lahat sila dyan, lahat. Masaya ako. Gagawin ko pang Thanksgiving ako kasi bagong buhay sila.
She's waiting for the Department of Social Welfare and Development to debrief the hostages. Their statements may be used to file cases against the MNLF rebels. It's been an ordeal for hostages trapped inside the battle zone. This man was one of those who escaped.
Hindi naman kami ginagawa nila kung ano, pero yung bawat magputukan doon sa pabayaan din kami, magtago lang kami ng ganon. Lagay namin ng mga kwan sa ulo namin para yung mga stray bullet, kung anong mga kwan, hindi kami tamahan.
The conflict in Zamboanga has reached new levels, and many feel it's just a matter of time before it completely winds down. When that happens, all that will be left behind are the burnt houses, the dead bodies, and the terrorized residents. Carmela Fonbuena, Rappler, Zamboanga City.
Joining us now from Zamboanga City live is Rappler's Carmela Fonbuena. Carmela, what is the latest right now?
Hi, Maria. We just came from the Western Mindanao Command and we were able to speak with Senior Superintendent Chiquito Malaya, the Zamboanga City Police Chief who was supposed to be hostage today. He's in good shape and he brought home with him 23 MNLF who surrendered to the police. So that's a little interesting. He was supposed to be hostage, but we asked him, were you hostage, sir? And he said, it's up to you to define it. Use the term you want. But he said he was looking for this armed group, and then he bumped into this armed group, this 23 MNLF. He was only with, there were just 4 of them. And when they bumped into this armed group, they talked. And then around early evening, we heard the news that he's released and he has with him 23 MNLF rebels. Interesting thing.
So according to Malayo himself, was he hostaged?
He wouldn't answer media questions. We repeatedly asked him that, were you a hostage? And he said, it's up to you to use the term that you want to use. But that's what happened.
Earlier, though, he seemed to indicate that he didn't want to go against what his superiors said earlier, that he had been a hostage. I mean, what's your take on this?
I'm not sure, Maria. It's war here and a lot of things are happening. There are a lot of things that need to be explained. Maybe after, we hope we're nearing the end of this crisis, and maybe after we can sort things out. There's a lot of things that we would like to be explained.
So just to clarify, he himself did not say he was a hostage, that he negotiated the surrender of the rebels.
He would not say he was a hostage. He would not say he was not a hostage. So it appeared to me that he was a negotiator.
Okay, interesting. And your last thoughts? I mean, it's day 9 of the hostage crisis. What does it look like? What is the mood there? How long will this last?
Some reporters are already talking about, possibly flying home to Manila. It's not over. We haven't heard about Commander Javier Malik yet, but series of good news today. There's high hope that pretty soon it will be over. Hopefully.
Okay. Thank you very much. That is Carmela Fonbuena joining us live from Zamboanga City. Malacanang defends the government's actions on the Zamboanga City conflict following criticism from former President Fidel Ramos. Ramos, if you remember, finalized the 1996 peace agreement with the Moro National Liberation Front under his presidency. He criticizes the Aquino administration for its alleged failure to implement the peace accord, despite the fact that it was, quote, handed on a silver platter. He also hits the Aquino administration's supposed lack of coordination in handling the siege. But presidential spokesperson Edwin Lacerda fires back at Ramos, saying the rebels' demands are unacceptable. Lacerda says MNLF chief Nur Miswari wanted a safe conduct pass that would let them off the hook from any punishment.
A crime has already happened. If they intended to do a Kabatangan template in 2001, that's something that they underestimated this administration.
Lacerda is referring to the 2001 siege of Zamboanga City, where the government agreed to let the rebels go in exchange for the release of their hostages. As the Zamboanga siege continues, the government and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front are in Kuala Lumpur to discuss the last 2 annexes needed for a final peace agreement. Angela Kasaway reports from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
It's a brutal irony of the Mindanao peace process under the Aquino administration. As the government and the MILF fresh out the final details on the annexes on Bangsamoro power sharing and normalization, security forces are locked in a 9-day standoff with the MILF's rival group, seen as a move to dilute the gains of the talks. The MNLF troops attacked Zamboanga the day the MILF and the government resumed talks here in Kuala Lumpur.
Mood is somber because we constantly update ourselves with what's going on in Zamboanga and the rest of Mindanao, and we are aware that the situation, there are several incidents that are not very good news.
The government is under fire for allegedly sidelining other interest groups as it forges a peace pact with the MILF. A faction of the MNLF earlier slammed the government's supposed divide-and-rule tactics in Muslim Mindanao. But the government maintains it has not abandoned the peace pact with the MNLF. Government is hoping the MNLF and the MILF peace processes will converge.
The past negotiation with the MNLF is part of the continuing change process. And eventually, the aim is to draw them in, provided they, of course, are willing to come in. Eventually, the governance will be by the entire Bangsamoro. You have to remember that after 2016, assuming there's going to be a law, a new law, ratified through a plebiscite, the election will be open to everybody in the Bangsamoro, not just the MILF.
Government says the peace talks will not just benefit one group, but the entire Bangsamoro.
What the government cannot agree to or promise is that everything will be delivered to Miswari. Because at the end of the day, that is probably his main interest.
Government adds it's also up to the rival group to take the initiative to come together.
It is not, however, within our powers to force them to get together, because that has to be arranged between the two of them. And I think even the OIC has pushed for this. And there are also several CSOs that are helping them along this line.
For now, the government promises to engage both sides in separate tables but towards the same goal. The Aquino administration wants to finish the transition towards the Bangsamoro before he steps down from office in 2016. As the government races against time to sign a final peace pact with the MILF, it is also racing against time to resolve the situation in Zamboanga. Could this just be the toughest test for Aquino's peace policy? Angela Kasaway, Rappler.
Explosions hit the movie theaters of two malls in Davao City Monday evening. No one was hurt in the blast at Cinema 1 of SM City, Davao, a little after 10 p.m. 5 people are taken to the hospital after experiencing pain in their ears following a second explosion at Cinema 5 of the Gaisana Mall. In a press briefing Tuesday, Davao Mayor Rodrigo Duterte orders tighter security in all public places in Davao. Duterte says MNLF Chair Nur Miswari denies involvement in the blasts. Pork barrel queen Janet Napoles files a motion for bail before a Makati court Monday. The motion is scheduled to be heard Friday. Makati Regional Trial Court Clerk of Court Josfa Valencia says Napoles, through her lawyers, filed a motion allowing bail, quote, alleging that the evidence of the prosecution is weak. Napoles is currently detained at Fort Santo Domingo in Santa Rosa, Laguna for serious illegal detention. Her brother, Reynald Lim, is also being charged. Lim is still at large and avoiding arrest. Serious illegal detention is a non-bailable case. Section 7 under Rule 114 of the Revised Rules of Criminal Procedure says bail will not be allowed when evidence of guilt is strong. But Valencia says, quote, the burden of proof to show that the evidence of guilt is strong is on the prosecution. Staff members of senators who face charges over the pork barrel scam either resigned or are on leave. 4 staff members of Senators Bong Revilla, Juan Ponce Enrile, and Jinggoy Estrada are among the 38 individuals facing plunder charges for the scam. Principal whistleblower Ben Hurloy told the Senate last week the senators or chiefs of staff coordinated with employees of pork barrel queen Janet Napoles for the release of the money. Enrile's former chief of staff, Gigi Reyes, resigned in January at the height of the Senate fund controversy, but she was still seen with Enrile in various events in the past months. In a press briefing Monday, Justice Secretary Laila de Lima says Reyes flew to Macau on August 31 with a return ticket for September 3. De Lima says there's no record of Reyes' return. Estrada's former appointment secretary, Pauline Labayan, also resigned. The senator's media officer says Labayan resigned mid-July, effective this week. Revilla's aide, Richard Cambe, is on leave. The senator's staff is unsure when Cambe filed his leave of absence. The 4th staff member facing charges is Ruby Tuason, who's listed as a liaison officer for Enrile and Estrada. But the staff of the 2 senators tell Rappler Tuason is not employed with their offices. Senate President Franklin Drilon says the Senate minority wanted no names mentioned in the Senate probe into the pork barrel scam. In a radio interview with DZBB, Drilon responds to reports the bloc of Senate Minority Leader Juan Ponce Enrile asked to stop the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee investigation. Reports say the request was relayed during a caucus in August. Drilon says in Filipino, quote, they did not ask that it be stopped because they know this is not possible as there's already a resolution. What they asked was that no names be mentioned. 2 members of the minority, Enrile and Senator Jinggoy Estrada, along with Senator Bong Revilla, face of plunder complaint filed by the Justice Department over the multi-billion peso scam. But during the Senate hearing, senators asked resource persons to name names. In the September 12 hearing, Senate Majority Leader Alan Peter Cayetano asked principal whistleblower Ben Hurloy the slogan of the senator he visited years ago and mentions Enrile's 2010 campaign tagline. Senator Francis Escudero also says it would be best for Luy to name names to erase the perception that all senators were involved in the scam. Senator Miriam Santiago wants a speedy investigation into the pork barrel scam a day after plunder charges were filed against lawmakers for alleged corruption. In radio interviews, Santiago says the ombudsman should not allow any motion for postponement to delay its preliminary investigation, particularly because of, in her words, diarrhea. She says, quote, no postponement should be granted in the name of the almighty diarrhea. Citing her experience as a regional trial court judge, Santiago says, quote, diarrhea is the most common ground for postponement sought by lawyers and witnesses. Santiago's statement comes after Senate Minority Leader Juan Ponce Enrile was rushed to the hospital Saturday because of high blood pressure. Enrile is accused in the plunder complaint. Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales, who is in the Senate Tuesday, estimates it will take less than a year to finish this case.
Please, ma'am. Please continue.
So that the 1 year that I gave is really just an estimate. It could be less.
It could be
I
less.
don't expect it to be more. It could be less.
You're hoping that it won't be more.
I will see to it that it won't be more.
Despite the slow recovery of rich countries that trade with the Philippines and host overseas Filipinos, economic managers say the Philippines is on its way to solving its biggest problem, poverty. Officials say the Philippines can attract more investments that generate jobs because of its stellar growth and credit rating upgrades. Confidence is high the drive for inclusive growth will not be affected by the multi-billion peso pork barrel scam and the Zamboanga standoff.
I think investor sentiment must be extremely positive at the moment. The Philippines is really the good news story of ASEAN at the moment, as we heard this morning, going from the sick man of ASEAN to being the new tiger economy. And I think that's the bigger picture that people will see.
The fact that we've been totally candid about it shows the maturation of our democracy and our institutions, and I think this augurs well for the good governance agenda of the President.
Tropical storm Odette, international name Usagi, remains almost stationary east of Tuguegarao City. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says the storm is expected to be 300 kilometers east of Apari, Cagayan by Friday afternoon. Storm warning signal number 1 is lifted over Cagayan. It's expected to enhance the southwest monsoon, bringing light to moderate rain over western sections of southern Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. A former U.S. naval reservist opens fire at the Washington Navy Yard Monday, killing 12 people before being killed himself in a shootout with police. Police identified the suspect as 34-year-old Aaron Alexis, who served in the Navy from 2007 to 2011 before becoming a defense contractor. Officials say the motive for the attack is still unknown. Washington, D.C. Mayor Vincent Gray adds, "We don't have any reason at this stage to suspect terrorism, but certainly it has not been ruled out." The United Nations reveals what it calls chilling details of a sarin gas attack in Syria. UN experts say they gathered clear and convincing evidence that surface-to-surface rockets took sarin gas into a Damascus suburb last month. The U.S. estimates about 1,400 people died in the attack. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says investigators confirm, quote, unequivocally and objectively that chemical weapons have been used in Syria, and adds this is a war crime. The United States, Britain, and France say the UN report shows troops of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad used the weapons. But Russia's UN envoy says there should be more investigation into who is responsible. Russia sides with the Syrian regime in blaming opposition rebels for the chemical assault. Let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 5, U.S. whistleblower Edward Snowden is living under guard in Russia, which granted him temporary asylum on August 1. Snowden's Russian lawyer, Anatoly Kucherena, says the former CIA employee was able to travel incognito and is expecting visits from family members. In a television interview, Kucherena says Snowden has more secret material from the U.S. National Security Agency, which he hasn't handed over. The U.S. wants Russia to hand Snowden over for investigation. At number 7, engineers in Italy successfully lift cruise ship Costa Concordia 20 months after it ran aground. 32 people died when the ship ran aground off the Tuscan coast in January of 2012. Workers attached giant metal chains and cables to the cruise ship. If the salvage operation goes wrong, toxic substances could leak into the sea. The salvage is the biggest ever for a passenger ship that had 4,229 people from 70 countries on board. And at number 9, global market research firm Nielsen reports Filipinos spend the least time on their smartphones compared to users in Southeast Asia. In its report, Nielsen says Filipinos spend an average of 171 minutes a day in June. This is equivalent to about 2.85 hours or a little less than 3 hours. Malaysians average more than 4 hours, Thais spend 3.48 hours, and Indonesians log 3.26 hours on their smartphones. Filipinos spend the most time on entertainment activities. Users depend on their smartphones for chatting, social networking, and entertainment. Filipinos spend the most time, about 50 minutes, on entertainment. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. Every story on Rappler has a mood meter, which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click how you feel, and your vote comes down to the mood navigator in the middle of the front page. That crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories that have affected our readers the most. These are the stories that have gotten the most votes on their mood meter. If you take a look today, it is day 9 of the siege, but we can see here day 8. This is in Zamboanga. Where is it headed? 70% sad, 17% angry. And the story that's really pushing it into the green, yesterday the plunder complaints against Estrada, Juan Ponce, Enrile, and Revilla, 87% happy. And the announcement of the Department of Justice as they were filing this case, 86% happy. And another case that also made people happy, not in the Philippines, but a court case, the death sentence for Indian rapists, 75% happy. These cases leading to green mood of the day today. Most people are happy. Well, that is Rappler's newscast for today, Tuesday, September 17th, 2013. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.